CNN legal analyst Shan Wu and CNN counterterrorism analyst Phil Mudd. Great to see you both. Shan, I want to go to you first on this idea that we heard from Sherwin that Trump may be culpable. What does that mean exactly? What would the threshold be to actually charge the former president?
It's the same threshold as any other charge. It's got to be probable cause, which they would be developing in the investigation. I do want to say it's very peculiar and odd that Sherwin has opined this way. Prosecutors avoid the use of the word I in court and certainly to the press. So his opining on this certainly causes me to think it's a very unusual situation.
But when you say probable cause, and I understand that point too, that it is unusual. As someone who covered the Justice Department, I was surprised he was speaking so freely. But when you say probable cause, what would it take? What would they need to prove that exactly?
Well, without knowing what they're finding in the communications, in the computers, text messages, etc., I would think along the lines of what Sherwin's saying, which is if you have a lot of people saying that they did this because Trump directed them to do that, that would be the evidence you have. Obviously, if there was some evidence of his or people working for him in touch directly with a group, then that would be much stronger evidence. I do think it's a little bit tough as a stretch if they just have people like Sherwin saying soccer moms saying they did it because, Trump said to do it. I think that's a little bit weak for a criminal case.
Right. And also on the other side, he mentioned that others said, well, I did it regardless of Trump. I mean, so how much weight, Phil, does this carry, what people are telling investigators about how much the president influenced them?
Well, let me agree with the tone of what we're talking about here. I think this is difficult. It carries some weight because obviously they're talking about they were inspired by the president or not inspired by the president, but I think this would be really difficult to prove. Remember, Pamela, we're transitioning from cases, trespassing, assault of a police officer, where you have video, where you have people on video using chairs to break down a window. I mean, it's pretty clear what they're doing at the Capitol. They're trespassing. You're transitioning to sedition, trying to say that someone's intent, what was inside their head, was to overthrow the government. I think this is a tough one, and I'll close by completely agreeing. Why is he talking about this? Jim Comey taught us, don't talk about ongoing cases until you choose to make a step in terms of an indictment. Why is he doing this and putting pressure on his successor, who's now faced with the question, are you going to charge or are you not going to charge? Because your predecessor, who is just in the media, is saying, we got the evidence.
Yeah, it is interesting because if they don't charge anyone with sedition, then like that this prosecutor essentially wanted them to do that, but they chose not to. It just puts them in a bit of a bind here. And I thought it was interesting when Sherwin basically cautioned about the sedition charge at the same time. He said it is not a low bar to charge someone. This is your old office, the D.C. U.S. Attorney's Office. Do you agree with him? How hard is it to prove that, Sean?
Well, I think they do have to have evidence of planning to prove that, and they might be able to get that for the people actually in the Capitol doing it, planning to get there. I think as Phil's saying, trying to move up that chain to the president or to members of Congress, they're going to need some pretty tight nexuses for that, and they would certainly have to run that up the chain at Main Justice with the Deputy Attorney General and the Attorney General weighing in. I mean, I will say on behalf of my old office, the current interim Channing Phillips is a rock of steadiness and reliability, and they are not going to be influenced by anything except the evidence. I have complete confidence in that, Pamela.
Okay, thank you so much for coming on, sharing your analysis. Appreciate your time.
Thanks for having us.
And